And you can see, I was hoping to find, you can see right there is a really nice channel.
Oh yeah.
That's showing why we can do that and why it's so easy to push a shovel or whatever you're trying to push in. You can see we've got an earthworm channel there. We've got some living roots here that are helping to make this soil as easy as it is to work.
Are you seeing any pill bugs or centipedes or any of those kinds of things?
We saw one earlier.
You know, as you brush back the residue, you ought to be able to see some evidence.
Evidence of earthworm castings right here and all along here. This is evidence that during the cooler times of the day, these earthworms are coming to the top, and basically they're processing that soil. Those aggregates are very stable as far as improving fertility of the soil from an agronomic standpoint. And all that's possible because of this residue.
So those casts are right next to the root system, you're saying?
Yes, sir.
Aren't casts kind of nutrient dense as far as NP and K?
Absolutely.
We've got them.
Absolutely. Very dense. Just about a perfect pH. And as far as fertility, a lot of phosphorus and potassium's there.
Now, how many, Will, how many earthworms should I have? Can I have too many?
No. No.
How many would be a good number for a field? How do I know I have a good population versus I didn't have any?
Well, ideally, you would want one for every spade full of soil that you dig up. Now, we see evidence. We haven't physically seen an earthworm in that spade full that Zeb has dug here, but there's certainly evidence that they've been here. If we could have at least one per square foot, I think we would be on the right track. In a conventional till field that has not had this treatment, you'll walk an entire field and never see an earthworm. And of course, outside of tillage, there's other practices as well that improve it as far as keeping something living on the land all the time. And sometimes fertility and pesticide usage can have some Yep, there's an earthworm channel right there at the end of that pencil.
So a big hole like that, doesn't that let water soak in the ground?
Yes, sir. Absolutely. Plus, it helps with the root structure as well, as far as cover crop or a row crop.
So you provide the place for a root to go down.
Absolutely.
We're okay. So,
but it was tiny.
So again,
There's
if that interface
right
between there, so farmers can do this. If they're out there, if you're not seeing any earthworms, then maybe they need to come see you at the Soil and Water District office and talk about how they can change their management.
Absolutely.
Around there. Now I've heard, this sounds kind of silly, but I heard you can kind of tell a little bit as you walk across a healthy soil, you kind of got a little spring, got a little bounce to it.
Yes.
Because you got that aggregation that's kind of lifting the soil. You got got that nice cover crop mat, so it's not like walking across the parking lot that a lot of our fields can turn into later on there.
One thing about fields that receive this type of management in the wintertime, we're able to get on the field without equipment getting stuck. A lot of times, as Zeb spoke about earlier, we don't have any standing water, so the field really acts like a sponge. We see it more evident in the wintertime than in the summertime, the benefits of the soil health.
Zeb, do you have much trouble with rutting? That's a good question. And what do you do if you do get, because I'm sure there's been years you've had issues.
Yes, sir. We don't have anywhere near the issues with rutting and field traffic as we have in the past. Since we've gone away from using a strip till rig on the majority of our acres and relying more on the covers, and then the longer that we've been in a cover system, being able to get back on the fields after we have a rain event, we can get back in a lot quicker. And what I guess what I've seen is, as far as rutting or having an issue with cutting down in a field with a piece of equipment, it seems that you cut down to the depth of your tillage. You know, if I run a ripping shank 12 inches deep and I fall into that ripping slip later in the year, I'm going down about 12 inches to the bottom of that ripping slip. If I run a disc and I cut it 4 or 6 inches deep, and we have a rain event and we come back out, I'm gonna mar down until I hit that compaction layer at the bottom of that tillage. So, it seems to me that if we're making ruts, unless it's extremely wet, you're really cutting down to the depth of your tillage.
Well, one thing I've had a farmer tell me, Will, is he's noticed he had some cobweb type of material down on the residue, and he was kind of concerned about that. You got any idea what that might be? Or
That's typically a fungal hyphae. We don't see a lot of fungal development in a row crop situation, but this higher lignin residue, especially if we were in a cornfield, if you see that white stringy, thank you, Zeb, that's an example of it. That's helping to break down that cover crop. That fungal hyphae breaks down that high lignin material. When we talk about residue, we're always interested in carbon to nitrogen ratio, and we won't get into a discussion on how much nitrogen we need to convert X number of pounds of organic biomass, but there is a conversion factor to determine. The more lignin it is, or the more woody it is, the more dependent we are on this fungal hyphae. And from there, it progresses up the food chain to a bacterial community, and then the earthworms, the microarthropods, and all the spiders and everything else that's involved. But this is kind of in the first steps of a decomposition here, cycling those nutrients. That's very important because that's our fertilizer warehouse. Now, this isn't an organic production because we've got some commercial fertility involved, but this is where it starts right here.
so that's not a cause for concern. That's a good thing when you're starting to see that.
Yes, sir. That's a very good thing. You know, the other thing that we're noticing is that keeps a lot of stability. And in other crops other than cotton, fungal development on leaves or the fruiting parts of a row crop, peanuts, for example, is very important. Matter of fact, one of our largest cost of productions in peanuts here in this part of the world is on fungicide applications. If we can get enough of this beneficial fungi operating in our biological system, it has a way of kind of regulating the harmful funguses that hurt or determine our yields. But this is certainly a beneficial here.